Well, there's a new book for sale on Amazon. It's called Johnny the Walrus, and it's become a bestseller. But it's caused a few employees at Amazon to be in tears. Let's check out why. So, Johnny the Walrus was written by a conservative political commentator, Matt Walsh, and the book has quickly become one of Amazon's bestsellers in LGBTQ plus books before being removed from that categorization. In fact, I have a copy of it here. I've got actually quite a big supply of them. And the book allegorically compares being transgender to pretending to be a walrus. And Amazon describes Johnny the Walrus as a timely tale of innocence, identity, and imagination in its online listing for the book. Johnny is a little boy with a big imagination. One day he pretends to be a big scary dinosaur. The next day he's a knight in shining armor or a playful puppy. But when the internet people find out Johnny likes to make believe, he's forced to make a decision between the little boy he is and the things he pretends to be. And he's not allowed to change his mind. Here's Matt Walsh on Fox News explaining the book.
Well, this is Johnny the Walrus. I have embraced my true calling as a children's author, hence the cardigan. And this is a very real book. It's on sale at johnnythewalrus.com right now. It's all about a child who's very imaginative. He likes to pretend to be different things. And one day he pretends to be a walrus, and he's got spoons in his mouth like tusks and socks on his hands like fins. And unfortunately, his mother is very progressive and thus confused. And so she's convinced by the internet and by society that if your child is identifying as something, then he really is that thing. And so she tries to raise her child as a walrus, as a sort of trans walrus, respecting his self-identity. At one point, I don't want to give away the ending, it gets a little dark. At one point, she brings him to a doctor and they talk about transitioning, a medical transition into a walrus, a gruesome procedure. Eventually start to learn that just because your child is pretending to be something doesn't mean that he actually is that thing.
Okay, so if you believe you're a walrus, that doesn't mean you actually are a walrus. That's kind of the point?
Yeah, if you believe you're a walrus, doesn't mean you're actually a walrus. And, you might also draw other comparisons. Maybe like if a young boy says that he's a girl, doesn't mean that he actually is a girl. See, the point here is that biology is not malleable. It's not relative. It's an objective reality. And so that's what we have to understand. And the children, when they make many claims about themselves, they're imaginative people. But when we take that seriously, we end up foisting an identity crisis on them, like Johnny does like Johnny's mother does to him, unfortunately. And it can lead to terrible things.
Now, according to media reports, Amazon staff have been traumatized by this particular book, and workers at the meeting hinted they'd like to see it banned from the platform altogether, cancel culture, and they held a meeting to address the really tough content of the book, claiming it has been, quote, very traumatic for transgender Amazonians and our transgender customers. And they strategize on how they can demote it on the site, put it out of sight. So when you go to Amazon, you don't actually see it being promoted, even though it's a bestseller. The host of this meeting also shared a complaint from a customer who alleged that the book teaches apparently children to kill transgenders or bully them into committing suicide, which is, of course, complete and utter rubbish. The book is about true acceptance, says Matt Walsh. It's about a boy who identifies as a walrus and his mother goes along with it, but they both learn at the end you should accept yourself for who you truly are, who you biologically are. A message of self-acceptance. When I was a kid, that was the most common message in books that we read. It is just now on the left where the force on kids is actually rejecting who you really are in favor of a delusion. Well, in response to complaints from that small group of Amazon staff, Matt Walsh actually tweeted this: Amazon employees are traumatized by my children's book. Meanwhile, one of the top-selling children's books on the site right now is from the American Academy of Pediatrics, and it pushes puberty blockers and sterilization on 9-year-olds. But my book is the problem. Exactly. This book is a simple illustration of how gender ideology is destroying the innocent imagination of young children, and it's locking them into life-changing and life-harming transgenderism. So, you can have watchful waiting, therapy, and healing of the mind, or the way these Amazon employees and the Biden administration and activists here in New Zealand want it: chemicals and castration on young people. The dangerous ideology that it will somehow be beneficial for them to cut off their breasts or penises bind their chest, take cross-sex hormones, and block the natural progression of puberty. You know, what amazes me is that for a troubled anorexic girl who believes she's overweight, yet biologically she isn't, she may be very skinny and very ill, we heal the mind rather than offering liposuction and weight loss pills and diets. For a troubled young person with gender confusion, we should heal the mind, not cut the body. And you know what? This book, it simply calls out the troubled and harmful approach being jammed down in our culture by radical activists and the media. Buy this book, Johnny the Walrus, on Amazon. Show that it's time to push back with truth and biology for the sake of these children.